why do I talk about scholarly consensus? When it comes to historical data, scholarly consensus is important because we're looking at multiple perspectives. We're not looking at, for example, the main example on my channel, obviously, is the New Testament. So when it comes to scholarly consensus among scholars of the New Testament, we're not talking about Catholics specifically. We're not talking about Christians specifically. We're not talking about atheist scholars or historians. We're talking about any one of the above, Muslim as well. So there's all kinds of New Testament scholars. None of them talk about the New Testament as being a work of pure mythology and fiction because of the fact that we have real places and accurate depictions of who Roman governors were at the time, who Roman rulers were at the time, for example, who Jewish rulers were at the time, and historically accurate places. It wasn't taking place in any place that was fictional as well. So New Testament scholars know without a doubt that this is a historical document to some degree. It's not just made up fantasy, right? We understand that with clarity based upon how people are analyzing the New Testament. And we can know this with assurance. And this is a great gift that God's given us because of just how much documentation there is for his life when he became a human as the man Jesus Christ. Let's move on from here. So when it comes to the New Testament, Jesus is not a myth, and that is clear. There's no New Testament scholar that really, well, there are a few that believe he was made up by the disciples, but I think that's few and far in between because of just how much data there is for Jesus being a historically real person. Now, there are plenty of New Testament scholars that do not believe that Jesus performed miracles, for example. They don't believe miracles exist. They don't believe in a God, for example, and that doesn't leave room for miracles or supernatural in general to really exist. So because of a scholarly predisposition, there are many scholars that don't believe Jesus performed miracles. And it's interesting to look at historical data in the Jewish community near the time or soon after the life of Jesus that calls Jesus a sorcerer in the Jewish Talmud. So it's interesting, you look at that, and they're not saying Jesus was a myth. They're not saying that Jesus was not performing miracles. They say he was a sorcerer. So they're kind of explaining away the miracles that way. So it's that's one reason I believe that Jesus obviously performed miracles. I believe that prior to understanding that, but having that brought to my perspective was pretty cool. So we're getting close to 5 minutes here. Scholarly consensus, just wanted to throw in science here. So we have peer-reviewed articles and papers that are published by science, and there are developments in science. It's a process the knowledge of understanding how nature works and processes in nature. It's studying that, so we can have scientific data that we can understand with clear certainty. But when it comes to historical data, that doesn't really have to do with science besides maybe some certain parts of archaeology. When it comes to historical data, we're looking at how do we determine what actually happened throughout history. And I believe that there is plenty of data showing that Jesus is who he said he was. He performed miracles, and that he claimed to be God, and he rose from the grave. This all being done as an act of sacrifice, self-sacrifice. He suffered. He really suffered. He was feeling the pain of the cross, and he did it after claiming that the best way that one can love your neighbor, basically, a fellow human being, is to die for them. To die for your friends is the best way of show of love. Jesus taught that, and then he died, claiming to be the sin offering for the whole world, so that the door is open to heaven for all of us. That's what Jesus Christ did. He claimed to be the creator like no other human being is. So study his life in the historical biographies of his life, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, written by eyewitnesses or people who worked with eyewitnesses very closely. And stay blessed, everybody. God bless you. I hope you all find a personal connection with our Creator in the man Jesus Christ.